manager, the wolf. Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy. As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired. Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
As we head towards colder weather, it's important to make sure you're up to date on vaccinations and protected from COVID-19. The Native American Community Clinic is now administering the updated Pfizer bivalent booster. The updated bivalent booster helps protect against the original COVID-19 strain and against newer Omicron variants. And it will help restore protection that has decreased since previous vaccinations. People age 5 and older are now recommended to get an updated bivalent booster dose at least 2 months after their last COVID-19 shot. That means the bivalent booster may be given after a person's primary series or after their last booster shot, regardless of what brand you received before. Even if you've already had COVID-19, you should get vaccinated. Right now, at the Native American Community Clinic, you can get COVID-19 vaccines, including updated boosters, at the same visit as other vaccines. However, if you've received a recent monkeypox vaccine, you may need to wait 4 weeks before you can get a COVID-19 vaccine, and you should discuss this with your provider. Schedule your vaccination appointment with the Native American Community Clinic by calling 612-872-8086.
Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in 4 directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy. But with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
Join the Midtown Phillips Neighborhood Association conversation about improving traffic safety in the neighborhood. It takes place virtually on Tuesday, October 25th at 6:30. The City of Minneapolis and the Midtown Greenway Coalition will talk about the Phillips Traffic Safety Project. The project's goal is to reduce speeding and improve traffic safety. These improvements will make the street more comfortable for people who walk, roll, or drive. Again, that's a virtual community conversation about the Phillips Traffic Safety Project on Tuesday, October 25th at 6:30. Find the Zoom link at midtownphillips.org.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Partly cloudy tonight with a low of 43, then sunshine on Friday with a high of 64. Grab a tray at Cafe Latte and pick from their award-winning selections of soups, salads, sandwiches, and desserts. Cafe Latte is at Victoria Street and Grand Avenue in St. Paul or at cafelatte.com.
Portions of Native Roots Radio may be pre-recorded.
It's a good day to be indigenous. Get up, stand up.
They are going to become more brutal.
Couldn't cut, hitting cut again.
Because all the hippies were trying to be Indians anyway.
They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power.
Hey, Victor.
We must live in balance with the earth.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
I am awake.
Welcome to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Wakanja Hade. Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in 4 directions. You are listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot, and we discuss local and national Native news and events. And as you know, Ogama, Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues.
And this portion of the show is brought to you by MN350, a grassroots organization fighting for climate justice.
Yes, they are. And, just a quick story about MN350. I know when Dakota Access Pipeline protests were starting and the chairman asked us to come to Standing Rock and stand behind them with their oil pipeline being built there right on their reservation. MN350 was there right away, and that's when I first met them. We took a bus to Standing Rock with the youth and got to meet all these people, and we've been partnering ever since, and we're really happy to be partnering with them. And so without any I just wanted to say that without any further ado, Ogama, you're going to have the news that you don't hear anywhere else here right on Native Roots Radio. Welcome, Ogama.
Anim Buju, everybody. I'm Ogama Ganua-Kwe. I'm a citizen of the Red Lake Nation in northern Minnesota, and I have some news for you here on Native Roots Radio. We have information. There's a hybrid event going on both online and in person about ICWA. So, if you don't know what ICWA is the Indian Child Welfare Act. And right now it's set to go forth to the Supreme Court in 2022 to determine whether or not portions of ICWA are considered quote unconstitutional end quote. ICWA was established to protect Native children from being removed from their homes, and I believe we had Heather Keeler on earlier this week talking about how in Minnesota the rate of children being taken from their families that are Native children is 17-1 compared to white families. And I know that the rate for our BIPOC relatives are also higher than the rate of white children that are taken and removed from their families. ICWA ensures that those children that are Native American are placed with the next available relative, and if not a relative, somebody who is also Native American, preferably from their tribe. There is a hierarchy and preference to protect those children from losing access to their culture and to their family, and that is currently under attack. So this hybrid event is happening next Thursday, October 22nd, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Minnesota Indian Women's Resource Center on 15th Avenue in Minneapolis, and South 15th Avenue, excuse me. And it's also available online. So if you are wanting to go and register for this event, it is free. It's completely free. You can go to eventbrite.com and you can search for ICWA, ICWA, under attack, and you will find that event. And you can also find the link and the information on the websites and social media for the Minnesota Indian Women's Resource Center. I don't believe that this is limited to people who are in Minnesota. So if you're nearby in Wisconsin and you want to drive into the Twin Cities, you could go to the Minnesota Indian Women's Resource Center, or you could just simply join up for their online conference. Again, really important conference and hybrid event on ICWA and how it's under attack and what we can do about it, presented by the Minnesota Indian Women's Resource Center, Thursday, October 22nd from 6 to 8 p.m. Central Time. Another really interesting thing that I found, Robert, that I can't even express how much I really love this artist. But are you familiar with the artist Lila June Johnston?
No, I'm not.
Lila June is a musician, and also she has spent the majority of the last few years working on her PhD dissertation about indigenous food systems. And she has a TED Talk that is phenomenal. She just released it earlier this month in October. I believe it was late last week it hit. The topic is called Architects of Abundance, Indigenous Food Systems and the Excavation of Hidden History. And basically her whole goal was to show how brilliant our indigenous ancestors were and also how brilliant we are still today, right? She is talking about coastal Salish nations and other tribes as well that had these wonderful indigenous architectural systems that were able to grow food. And if you go and search for Lila June TEDx KC, you should be able to find it. It was not a hard thing to find, but it's really something to catch that. So I recommend, Robert, if you get some time, you should definitely check it out.
Yeah, definitely. And, too, when you were speaking about her TED Talk, I was thinking also all the medicines out there that were colonized and big pharma and all that. I mean, for sure, we like stuff, but there's stuff out there right now. And I was drinking flat cedar tea right when COVID came out.
Right, exactly. There was a lot of medicines that were stolen or derived from native ingredients, like birch provides the base medicine for aspirin. And there's also several others that are still, widely available. And I'm sure there are some that were either extinct or the knowledge of them has been lost due to colonialism. So those things are just as important as food. And it's important, if you know any of those medicines, to share your knowledge with people. Don't hold it back. Another really interesting thing, Mark Ruffalo, we know actor and activist Mark Ruffalo, also known as the Hulk. Most people know him as the Hulk. He has been a really great ally to Native people, using his
Voice.
his position, his voice as an actor to help Native communities. And he's just recently signed on as executive producer of an upcoming docu-series. So like a documentary, but it's a series. And it's going to explore the fight against systemic injustice for Native communities. It's just simply going to be called Natives, but it's the whole point is that they want to highlight the achievements of Indigenous activists and allies in what Ruffalo has said is the Native century, which is an era in which the younger and older generations of Natives can better get in touch with their cultural heritage, which would probably be the generation that we're in, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. So this is really exciting, and Ruffalo has produced some other great films and documentaries. Earlier this year, he produced the documentary Lakota Nation versus United States, which helped to helped to talk about the exploitation of Native people via colonization from the late 1400s all the way to the modern day. And there is going to be this upcoming docuseries called Natives. So I'm kind of excited to see what Mark Ruffalo is going to do with that. There's another film that's coming out that actually I might have talked about this in August, but it's spooky season, so I want to bring it up again. A filmmaker named Ryan Abrahamson is from the Spokane tribe in Washington, but he also created a film incorporating the Spokane culture and history, and it is a supernatural thriller that was also featuring Salish language and filmed in the Pacific Northwest. So really excited about this film, and you'll have to just touch base with me for just a minute here. I am looking for the title. I had it, and now I have lost track of the film title. But I'm sure that you should be able to catch it. Oh, here it is. It doesn't have a title just yet. So right now it's a short film that's set to air at the Spokane International Film Festival this spring. And he's hoping to get enough funding from that to make it a full-length feature film. So that is super exciting. And then just wanted to send out prayers for our Indigenous relative up in the stars right now, Nicole Mann, who is currently up at the International Space Station. So prayers up for her.
Good one. Hey, and Pinigigi Ogama for the news that you don't hear anywhere else. Up next, Robert Lilligren of Native American Community Development Institute here in Minneapolis. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us. We are living in a critical time for Indian country. Climate chaos threatens our land, water, and communities. Voting is one way we can protect our planet for future generations. Voting creates a collective power in the fight for our future. Have one-on-one conversations with your friends and family to make sure that they're making informed voting choices. Voting is our voice. This November, NATKI is asking us to stand together and make voting a tradition. Go to makevotingatradition.org to learn more and to make your pledge to vote.
J&S Bean Factory is a native-owned, community-supported, cozy, artsy coffee shop which offers roasted on-site beans, live music, and baked goods. Relax in the beautiful outside patio. City Pages writes, voted top 10 coffee shops. Tucked into a quiet corner of St. Paul's Highland Park neighborhood, this coffee shop roasts beans on-site from the best coffee-growing countries in the world. Located at 1518 Randolph Avenue, St. Paul. The good stuff.
Hi, this is Robert Pilot here telling you about Minnesota Native American art. Did you know that Twin Cities is known for Native art? Well, if you're not familiar, then check out All My Relations Arts. It's a program that seeks to increase the visibility and value of these incredibly talented American Indian artists in all forms of art while honoring the history and the presence of Indigenous cultures. And right now, All My Relations Arts is showcasing Rosie Seamus Dance, She Who Lives on the Road of War. This is an immersive installation dance performance created by Rosie Seamus in response to global loss and the collective need to come together in peace and reconciliation. She Who Lives on the Road of War is a place for visitors to rest, grieve, console, and meditate. Performances will take place through mid-December. Find the performance schedule at allmyrelationsarts.com. I love all the Indigenous art here in the Twin Cities, and I hope you can enjoy it too. allmyrelationsarts.com.
This is Winona LaDuke of Honor the Earth, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio. I'm Awake.
Welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot.
Hey, this portion of the show is brought to you by Make Voting a Tradition, a project of the Native American Community Development Institute. Go to nacd.org and click on Make Voting a Tradition to make a pledge to vote for yourself and for your relatives.
Good read there, Ogama. Hey, we got Robert Lilligren here with NADKI, Native American Community Development Institute, the CEO, and we like to have a little fireside chat with Robert each week. And Robert, I'm glad you could make it. I know you're a little under the weather here, and we appreciate you. You're such a trooper.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. Bonjour, Ogama. So nice to see you. And I was a little under the weather. I just got some vaccines and had some reactions. And I'll tell you, I never used to have reactions, but it seems like the older I get, the more I react to those kinds of shots. But well, mid-afternoon today, I started to feel better, and I appreciate the grace that you gave me.
Yeah, definitely. And Wendy always reminds me to ask you what you want to talk about when we're during breaks, and I just have to bring up before we ask you what you'd like to talk about is just we got a few days left here voting, and it's just man, we just have to say how important it is to vote and how important it is to get our relatives to vote, whether you have to pick them up or whatever. It's getting to be I think Wendy and I are going to go vote early.
Great.
And in the next day or so, and we just want to help so much. And I know your organization, I don't know if you can see, but I got this cool poster in the background here.
Love it. Yeah.
If you see that, I got that from you guys. Make voting a tradition. Totally stoked. Robert, let's talk just a little bit about how important it is.
Yeah, let's. And I appreciate your promoting the Make Voting a Tradition. We call it MVAT internally, and it's a multi-generational approach to get Native folks to vote. We focus a lot on the younger people and the elders, and especially people who are just under voting age, high school students. Data shows that if someone votes when they're 18, they are way more likely to vote throughout their entire lives. And so we want to really make sure we're starting that tradition in young folks, and then encouraging young folks to get their elder family members registered into the polls. And it's been phenomenally successful in its maybe 8 or 9 years now.
Yeah, it is. And Jolene is just a trooper and works with you guys. I got to see and talk to her a little bit today. I saw her at the Four Sisters gathering, which is only one more week left.
One more week, right? Yeah, Jolene's kind of our secret weapon, man. She is really something. She's really motivated. She's helping coordinate organizers up in northern Minnesota to work to register and turn out Native voters, and they even all traveled up to Bemidji last week for a training in mapping and building Native power. That was really well attended. Several people from down here in the cities went up. So building those relationships, right?
Yeah, definitely. And the last cycle, Make Voting a Tradition helped up there in the deep north with 9,000 new voters, and people like Governor Walz and of course Peggy know the power that is that can turn elections with those numbers.
It can turn elections, and now that we have congressional districts that are drawn to be inclusive of Native populations in northern Minnesota, I think there's even more chance to influence the outcomes of those votes, to get more Native folks elected into office, and to keep building that through generations. So so I encourage folks to register to vote and have a plan, like we were saying earlier, but also make sure your whole household's registered and votes, your relatives, your neighbors, your coworkers, get out and vote. Early voting is still happening. Our Make Voting a Tradition focuses more on turnout on election day than early voting, but early voting is really valid. It's good to hear that you and Wendy are heading in to do early voting, but this really matters. Native votes, although not huge in numbers, are huge in influence, and we can influence the outcomes. So we can determine the outcomes of elections that are close. So please go vote.
Exactly. And it'll be good for us to have a plan afterwards to help, whether we're calling our relatives and reminding them, because sometimes they listen to the press, and the press is talking about they're talking about a lot of crazy stuff, but I don't think they're interviewing our secret weapon, and that's the women and the young ones. Gen Z's gonna, is it Gen X or Gen Z now? But they're gonna save us. They really are. They're sick and tired of people like our generation are the boomers doing what we done to everything, and they're out there in force.
Yeah,
And they're not being counted at these polls either.
Right. And so you read those polls, and I think there's a lot more going on underneath those polls, those headlines. I think we're going to see the influence of the young people like we've never seen it before, and women voting as a block. I think that's going to have tremendous impact on the outcome. And then, of course, the day after election, the Supreme Court hears the Brackeen case, the ICWA law case. So that's something huge, that make voting a tradition is now part of a national strategy to organize people around that case.
Wow, that's great to hear. And not so much the case, but that you guys are on it, because that's a thing as an adoptee, and not hearing very good stories about that, and just the history of the 60s scoop and these things that our allies don't know about because it isn't taught to them. And we have to find out through sad stories with our relatives what happened to them and what happened then. And that documentary I think you and I have talked about over the years is that Finding Cleo, that documentary, those heartbreaking things that happened to us that we don't want to happen to our people again.
And that's just it. And then the attack on ICWA by the states and others is really an attack on sovereign rights. And so that's one plank that'll be pulled that can then act as a basis for other arguments for attacks on sovereign rights.
Yeah, it's scary and it's real, and I think the Supreme Court basically said what they're going to do, and so we need to reverse that, and we need to get our Democratic relatives elected so we can push them in a good way.
Agree. And that's the campaign, the national campaign that Make Voting a Tradition is preparing for now, with organizations like Native Organizers Alliance, a Native power building organization. Illuminative is another. And so they're setting common messages, petitions, and things that will help share out from our little organization.
Yeah. Wow. It always seems like we're under attack, probably because we are. Maybe it doesn't seem that way, but it is because we are.
Yep, agree. Yeah, so that I know there's some mobilization out to DC into the Supreme Court the day after Election Day. So on November 9th, that would be, folks are headed out to DC.
Wow, that might be a time to go out there and take a quick trip. That's my sobriety date too. So
congratulations.
1984, I sobered up. Oh, wow.
That was a long time ago. Congratulations.
Easy, Robert. I think you're a little older than me.
Maybe a year. I think a year.
Yeah. But it's hard. I was talking to somebody today, a younger person that's well-rounded, a college student, played for the Wisconsin Badgers, a Ho-Chunk member, and I talked to him, and he's too young to know a lot of the things that you and I talk about, whether it's fun things like, you didn't know who was all Indian at your school until 1978 when, just those fun stories. And he's amazed because they're not used to that.
Yep, it's so different. And then 1978 was kind of a magical year, right? A lot of pro-Native legislation was passed. The Freedom of Religion Act, the Indian Education Act might have been in 79, but it was right around there. And ICWA, that's when ICWA was passed as well. And so,
wow.
Right away, as soon as rights were recognized, then they were under attack, right? And so we're seeing that still today.
So that's a part of the thing that's really important, what you guys do with making voting a tradition, is that we outnumber them, and we have to be energized. And there has to be no such thing as Indian time, and no such thing as what do they call this midterm election? They're all elections. Let's not name these. These are elections.
Right. Well, in Minneapolis, just because of the way cards fell and everything, we'll have an election every year for the next 6 years.
Wow.
Because of redistricting and other things that happened here. So we're not stopping.
Wow.
With our voter and education.
Boy, I better check that here in the capital city of Minnesota, St. Paul, what's going on here, because that's kind of scary.
Yeah.
No time to rest. And that's a bummer. We talked to somebody like Heather Keeler or Jamie Becker Finn, and they're constantly running for election because it's every 2-year cycle. It's terrible.
Yeah, those 2-year terms, they're brutal.
Yeah, we have to change that somehow. But hey, Robert, you got time for another quick segment? I know you're not feeling good, but you're looking good.
Thanks. You smooth talker, sure, I'll stick around.
All right. Hey, this is Native Roots Radio, and I'm with Robert Lilligren of Native American Community Development Institute here in Minneapolis in the Twin Cities. We'll be right back after this short break. Please stay with us. Hey, Wendy, what are we doing for dinner after the show?
How about we go to J. Selby's on 169 Victoria Street in St. Paul? They have a delicious plant-based menu that's compassionate and environmentally sustainable.
I'm getting their spot-on vegan Big Mac, the dirty secret.
You can pick up and they deliver within a 5-mile radius, or you can call them at 651-222-3263 or visit jselbys.com.
Well, you sold me, Wen. Let's go order at J. Selby's tonight.
I'm hungry.
As we head towards colder weather, it's important to make sure you're up to date on vaccinations and protected from COVID-19. The Native American Community Clinic is now administering the updated Pfizer bivalent booster. The updated bivalent booster helps protect against the original COVID-19 strain and against newer Omicron variants. And it will help restore protection that has decreased since previous vaccinations. People age 5 and older are now recommended to get an updated bivalent booster dose at least 2 months after their last COVID-19 shot. That means the bivalent booster may be given after a person's primary series or after their last booster shot, regardless of what brand you received before. Even if you've already had COVID-19, you should get vaccinated. Right now, at the Native American Community Clinic, you can get COVID-19 vaccines, including updated boosters, at the same visit as other vaccines. However, if you've received a recent monkeypox vaccine, you may need to wait 4 weeks before you can get a COVID-19 vaccine, and you should discuss this with your provider. Schedule your vaccination appointment with the Native American Community Clinic by calling 612-872-8086.
When we heal from our traumas,
when we face our fears,
let go of our addictions,
when we relearn our values,
when we live our teachings,
respecting our elders,
cherishing and honoring our children,
when we honor and take care of our spirit,
there will be no room left for sexual violence.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Hey, Ogama, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Metro State University empowers students to expand their knowledge and advance their careers through high-quality bachelor's and master's programs in high-demand fields. Looking to complete a 4-year degree? Metro State has more than 60 undergraduate programs to choose from. Hoping to move into the next level of your career? Find out which of Metro State's 25-plus graduate programs is right for you. Visit metrostate.edu for upcoming info sessions and to apply. Spring registration is open now. Metro State University, where learning meets living.
Hi, this is Desi Doyen of the Green News Report and the Bradcast. You're listening to AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Join the Midtown Phillips Neighborhood Association for community conversation about improving traffic safety in the neighborhood. It takes place virtually on Tuesday, October 25th at 6:30. The City of Minneapolis and the Midtown Greenway Coalition will talk about the Phillips Traffic Safety Project. The project's goal is to reduce speeding and improve traffic safety. These improvements will make the street more comfortable for people who walk, roll, or drive. Again, that's a virtual community conversation about the Phillips Traffic Safety Project on Tuesday, October 25th at 6:30. Find the Zoom link at midtownphillips.org.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Partly cloudy tonight with a low of 43, then sunshine on Friday with a high of 64. Grab a tray at Cafe Latte and pick from their award-winning selections of soups, salads, sandwiches, and desserts. Cafe Latte is at Victoria Street and Grand Avenue in St. Paul or at cafelatte.com.
Bijou. I am Oshawashko Gijig. I'm from Red Lake Nation, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
Welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake.
This portion of the show is brought to you by the Minnesota Indian Women's Resource Center.
Yes, the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual wait, I'm messing it up too now.
The Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Thank you. Jeez. I used to, I impress those guys because they've been a sponsor for like 6 years and that I've been able to say it and they're going, oh, wow, you did say that really well. And, well, at first I didn't. Hey, we're here with Robert Lilligren of the Native American Community Development Institute, the CEO. And also I want to give a shout out to everyone on our civic media network all over Turtle Island. We're really happy to be on and have this little, I don't know, fireside chat that we have with Robert, kind of just what's going on, what's happening. And Robert, we don't talk a lot about this, but you've been you were the city council member in Minneapolis. You've been a part of so many different organizations and still are, but I just lead it off as with NADKI. It's always great to have you and your knowledge on.
You're very kind. Thanks, Robert. Yeah, I served on the Minneapolis City Council from 2001 to 2014. The first tribal citizen, so far the only tribal citizen elected to that body. And I'm still in government. I serve, it's an appointed role, appointed by the governor on our regional government, the Metropolitan Council. And again, the first tribal citizen to ever serve on that body. So it's a start and, and room for more.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. I think, we forget that we as natives haven't been invited to the table just until recently.
Right. I mean, these are systems that were designed to harm us, right? And they did. They were very successful at it. And so it's not surprising that there's sort of a slow approach to engaging in this way, but now you're seeing it. I mean, with our own Lieutenant Governor, Congresswoman Sharice David, Secretary Holland, just all across the state. And there's an understanding that's how it's an expression of collective power, right? We get Native people into these structures, support them when they're there, and we can change the systems that were meant to harm us so that they benefit us.
Before I ask you to speak upon what you'd like to talk about today, I just want to ask you, because I know personally, with a few things that I got going on, how daunting this can be sometimes to get out of bed. How do you deal with that? And how do you support people? I mean, you're constantly working. We're constantly working. Ogama's constantly working. And,
and she's a mom.
A double mom, and then her husband needs to be mothered too, so she's got like 3 kids. No? Okay. Olgaman shook her head no.
Yeah.
But it's daunting and it's every day, and it's funny, we always kind of talked about when we started going 5 days a week, would we run out of stuff to talk about, and there's no way in heck that that'll ever happen.
Right. Yeah, so I do my practices and I get up and thank my ancestors and engage with my ancestors and for me, I need to generate a sense of optimism or joy before my feet touch the ground. As a matter of fact, when I moved to this new place now, 4 years ago, we intentionally bought a bed where my feet don't touch the ground when you put your legs over the edge. I'm a pretty tall guy because I was determined to feel positive before my feet touch the ground. So that helps a lot. Looking for the positive in people helps a lot. Giving people space to make mistakes, giving people grace. That's a word that we've been using a lot since COVID, and trying not to engage in the negative, because there's a lot of it out there to be engaged with.
Right, right. And yeah, that's awesome. And I do see, and well, I see you too, but you are very positive. And I know the older I've gotten, believe it or not, the more positive I have been, because, what's the bottom line? If, you're still alive, you can, fix things if they need to be fixed, but we all take a step at a time, and it isn't so dramatic. I guess I'm less dramatic.
Yeah, right. It's always, a new day. You have another chance to do good, But I'll tell you, I'm getting up there in years, as you know, and so I've always kind of wondered what kind of elder I was going to be. And just lately, I've been in these situations, the kind that you're in when you're trying to do systemic change and pushing against the status quo, and you're pushing, and if you move it this much, you have to celebrate and stuff. And I just was kind of grumpy these last couple of weeks about a couple of big deal issues, like the underlying causes that contribute to our relatives living without shelter, for example, and just trying to change that at a systemic level. And the system and the government's units move so slowly. So in the community, again, right now, we're planning how to keep our relatives, to keep them from freezing to death this winter, our unhoused relatives. And it seems like the same conversation we were having 4 years ago, during the Wall of Forgotten Natives, the enormous unsheltered encampment here in Minneapolis. And it's frustrating, right? And so now I've started to see myself as an elder, as that grumpy old man in the corner, kind of muttering angrily, And so I'm trying to redirect, so that isn't my future or my fate. But sometimes I gotta tell you, you push and it does get kind of exhausting. You're right, Robert.
Yeah, well, like here in the Minneapolis Star and Tribune, one of their main articles is council members proposed a raft of changes to the city's response to homeless encampments. Now, with a title like that could mean a couple of things,
right?
Or a lot of things, right?
There's been a couple of high-profile camp clearings here just recently, and kind of brutal ones. And so that's really raised the public's interest, the community's interest, and it's a much more visible issue these days, due a lot to advocacy and activists. We just had a high-profile camp at City Hall, on the steps of City Hall,
right,
just a week or so ago, and so the activists and advocates are leveraging the moment. But really, it was back in 2018 when our relatives established the Wall of Forgotten Natives. It was essentially an Occupy movement. It was a camp of some 200 tents. It was huge in a very tiny area. Ever since then, it's just been a much more public conversation. We couldn't ignore it anymore, and you couldn't ignore that the impact is hardest on Native people. A Native person in our region is 17 times more likely to be unhoused than the general public. 17 times.
Wow, that's unbelievable. Robert, so 2018 with the Wall of Forgotten Natives, I think what was unique, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that we had people that homeless like that for years, but they all congregated in one place and kind of blew everyone's mind by how many people are out there.
It totally blew everyone's mind. And they were little, sort of family units or smaller camps throughout the city. They were easier to ignore, and they were also easier to clear out. And then all of a sudden, the summer of 2018, in a crappy little strip of public right-of-way alongside of a highway, tents to sprout up. I mean, it was, like I said, about 200 tent camp in this little strip of land, highway with tens of thousands of people going by it every day, and a light rail train with tens of thousands of people going by it every day. Had to see it, and they couldn't ignore it anymore. And for about 5 seconds, people actually cared what happened to our relatives sitting outside. And We've tried to leverage that moment as much as possible to create systemic change, but it is slow to come.
Well, the positive things is that there's groups like yours and many groups that are off Franklin Avenue in the Twin Cities that supported, that fed, that helped this group of people, volunteered. I know we brought up a lot of things there because there was families and what young families need. They need diapers, they need hygiene, they need socks, they need things like that we can do for them. But it seems like groups like NADKI and the groups on Franklin Avenue stepped up, and it took a while for the city and government to join in.
Right. Well, it was really kind of interesting. We're in a decision point in a couple of different tables that I'm at where we're trying to get the refocus on Native folks. And when the powers that be, the city, the county, and others needed us to engage and to help care for our relatives at the Wall of Forgotten Natives, we were right there, right? I was in probably 5 or 6 meetings in City Hall every week. And we as leadership through the Metropolitan Urban Indian Directors here in the metro area, really each sort of took areas and worked on it. And so my area ended up being sort of the policy kind of side, because and man, we were listened to, and and they really needed that. And then, of course, as that becomes further in the distance, there's sort of less urgency to keep engaging the Native community, and there's more of the sort of, I don't know, systemic players. And I don't want to be all negative. People are trying new things. The city opened a tiny village. The county is reorganizing its resources. I mean, people are trying, but people are still living outside and they're dying outside, and winter is coming. And winters are very cold here.
Exactly. And it's amplified too by the lack of housing and affordable housing, because I see stuff springing up all over, and it's like, well, how much is rent there? It's like, what, $3,000?
Right.
Who the heck can afford that?
Right. Yeah, in my role at the Met Council, we operate a housing authority, a regional housing authority, so HUD housing, and so we're a big research agency, and so we generate a ton of research, and we were just looking at the rates of affordability. We have to sort of set what our HUD rates are going to be, and they're just brutal choices, Robert. I'll tell you, it's do you want people to have HUD subsidies that can actually secure decent housing? So you have to kind of raise those eligible rents, and that means just sort of fewer families, and it's this hideous balancing act that does not make me feel very compassionate, and does not make it seem like the U.S. is a very compassionate country when it comes to a basic need like housing. It should be a basic right?
Can I just go on record and say that the U.S. really isn't?
Yeah. Ogama's got her vote in. Yes.
Right. The voice of the future has spoken.
Right. Exactly. Well, Robert, thanks again for stopping in and speaking your truth. I always enjoy our conversations.
Me too.
And it just goes back to, the reason why people don't ask me to do land acknowledgements anymore is because I always say, give us our damn land back. That's my land acknowledgement. So great to have you on, and we won't see you next week, but I will see you soon. You'll be on vacation, and I hope HR okayed that, but we'll check on that. All right. Thanks, Robert. Robert Lilligren, Native American Community Development Institute here in Minneapolis and the Twin Cities. We'll be right back after this short break with Dr. Autum Blackdeer. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Hey, Ogama, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Minnesotans age 65 plus might qualify for Health Partners Minnesota Senior Health Options. The plan includes personal support, coverage for medical, prescription drugs, and dental, plus over 30 extra benefits. Eligibility information is available at healthpartners.com/oneplan. Health Partners is a health plan that contracts with both Medicare and the Minnesota Medical Assistance Medicaid program to provide benefits of both programs to enrollees. Enrollment in Health Partners depends on contract renewal.
Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States, and 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected. Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf. Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy. As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired. Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
J&S Bean Factory is a native-owned, community-supported, cozy, artsy coffee shop which offers roasted on-site beans, live music, and baked goods. Relax in the beautiful outside patio. City Pages writes, voted top 10 coffee shops. Tucked into a quiet corner of St. Paul's Highland Park neighborhood, this coffee shop roasts beans on-site from the best coffee-growing countries in the world. Located at 1518 Randolph Avenue, St. Paul. The good stuff.
Hi, I'm Jane Fonda, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
And we're back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is brought to you by Howling for Wolves, protecting wolves for future generations.
Wow, Dr. Blackdeer, right on. We usually have to twist arms to get our newer guests to howl. I really appreciate it.
Oh yeah.
Hey, I want to get you right into this. The dogs are going crazy right now. I don't know what's going on, but that's a deal with the home studio. I want you to speak your truth right now and talk about the event that's coming up, because we only have about 9 minutes and time flies. I want you to introduce yourself and let our people all over Media Civic Network, which is all over Turtle Island. We're live in 9 stations right now, and on many more. And the dogs are really agreeing with me here. Welcome, Doctor.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm Autum Asher Blackdeer. I'm from the Southern Cheyenne Nation, and I'm an assistant professor at the University of Denver. My work focuses on structural violence against Indigenous communities, so all sorts of manifestations of colonialism, like behavioral health issues, mental health disparities. And so what I'm working on with ProofCon is focusing on Indigenous motherhood. So they're hosting an event next week. It's called ProofCon Pro. And so they're really trying to highlight the relationship between fetal alcohol spectrum disorders and how that relates to mental health. So I'll be giving a presentation next Friday talking about Indigenous motherhood specifically, and how a lot of the alcohol use disorders and things like that we see today that impact maternal child health are really as a result of colonialism, right? And how alcohol was introduced into our communities, and how our Indigenous women are still persisting and thriving today.
Wow, Dr. Blackdeer, I'm a 62-year-old. Well, I guess I'm an elder, but I'm a junior elder. Let's say that. One of the things that has been brought up while we've been talking to your organization and other organizations in the last month or so is that, fetal alcoholism syndrome is not, like, I don't want to say the word death wish, but it's treatable in a big sense, and I never ever knew that. Could you touch a little bit on that?
Yeah, so one of the things that we're going to be talking about is how whenever moms use alcohol during pregnancy, that's one of the biggest causes for fetal alcohol syndrome whenever the babies are born. And so fetal alcohol syndrome is related to one of the biggest causes for the baby to have mental retardation whenever they're born. And so it's really an actual preventable thing. But I think a lot of folks, we don't really talk about, substance use during pregnancy. I think folks just kind of assume that we know what to do. But I think what I'm trying to highlight is that Indigenous women, specifically during pregnancy, are handling a lot of things at once, typically experiencing violence during pregnancy. And so they're often using substances as a way to cope. So we're trying to kind of highlight that it is preventable for sure, and we need to pay more attention to kind of like the entire picture that Indigenous women are dealing with.
Right. And I think for me, I've been sober since 1984, clean and sober since November 9th, 1984. And one of the things is people that are in addiction or are having problems uh, don't like to talk about it. And so those are things that it's great that your organization and yourself are involved in bringing this out of the, I don't know, out of the background and putting it forward because, I know I didn't want to talk about my drinking or any things like that, but until somebody else basically said it was okay or talked about their own experience, strength, and hope, I was feeling more comfortable to be able to come clean on mine.
Right. And absolutely thinking about it during pregnancy as well, right? There's such a, stigma and a pressure on mothers to just be immediately, know what to do, know how to navigate motherhood, know how to process pregnancy. And so it's really difficult to kind of even have discussions of, having a difficult time, like you were mentioning.
Ogama, did you have something?
As a mother myself, I'm the mother to 2 girls. It's not always as a woman, I think people think that we just instantly know when we're pregnant. And there's also, just the fact of you may not know right away that you're pregnant and making sure you're taking those regular tests. And if nobody tells you that if you're a person who can get pregnant and you use alcohol on a regular basis, it's not really normalized for people to tell you and to talk about, hey, have you tested to see if you're pregnant lately? Just to make sure, because every birth control that there is, they know fails. And, it could happen. And I think it's important for our relatives to be educated about that too. And that's a part of this as well.
Yeah. Wow. Really good point, Ogama.
I just want to take a minute too, if I can, and just say you can sign up for the conference. So it's called Proof Con Pro, and it's a virtual conference about fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. It's on October 27th and 28th from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. Central Time. You can register at proofalliance.org. It does have a small cost. It's about $30, but it's really affordable. And if this is something that's interesting to you or something that your group could benefit from, I would recommend that you guys go on and sign up. It looks really, really interesting.
Yes, doctor. Do you have any comments? That was really interesting what Ogama brought up.
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty much a great way to kind of get folks interested. I think that we're really going to talk about, I think just culturally how we as Native people know that we're always persisting through those deficit narratives, right? So folks always try to say, all natives are drunks or all natives, are, bad parents, right? And so it's really like, I'm really excited to work with ProofCon to show that these are, things that are persisting from settler colonialism, right? These are not our truths, right? And so I'm really excited that they're kind of leading the charge for this.
Yeah, exactly. And so, again, Ogama, if you don't mind reading out the registration for our people that are listening to us on the radio.
Absolutely. To register for ProofCon Pro, a virtual conference about fetal alcohol spectrum disorder on October 27th and 28th from 12 to 4 p.m., you can go to proofalliance.org. And right at the bottom of the page, it'll tell you about the events, and you can click right there. And registration is really easy. So sign up there.
Yeah, well, we're winding down here, Dr. Blackdeer. Any last comments or really appreciate you stopping in here. And it sounds like we'll be talking more because this is something that's not just going to go away.
Absolutely. Well, it was great to meet y'all and to stop in really quick. And I'm just excited to, be with good Native folks that are doing good work in the world. So thanks y'all for all that you do.
Oh, Peeny Gigi, likewise to you. Thank you for stopping in, and we'll see you soon.
Absolutely. Nyash.
Wow, that was awesome, Ogama.
Yeah.
Things like this going on all over Turtle Island. Just excited, and we talk about how it's daunting at times, but there's doers like Dr. Blackdeer and Robert Lilligren, what we had on earlier, and yourself. There's doers out there that are really doing things for the community, and I'm proud to amplify and along with you amplify everybody's voice.
I am so proud to be part of this work and to be able to host wonderful people like Dr. Blackdeer and the Proof Alliance and Robert Lilligren and all of those wonderful people. They do good work. If I can, Robert, I just want to mention to our relatives that might be listening, if you're struggling using alcohol or drugs and you're having a hard time stopping, make sure you reach out for help. There are a lot of people who, like Robert Pilot here, who's got how many years? 37, Robert?
38, I think, but who's
38
counting?
years of sobriety. There's a lot of people like Robert Pilot out there who are willing to extend that hand to help you out. So reach out for help if you need it.
Good way to end it. And if you are listening to this show, you are part of the resistance from Chief Plenty Coops. The ground on which we stand on is sacred ground. It is the blood of our ancestors. We need to resist, divest, join a group, run for office. Pinigigi to Dr. Autum, Blackdeer, Robert Lilligren, and of course, Ogama. We are still here. We are the 7th generation. Free Leonard Peltier now.
Hi, I'm Claire Ferreira, president and owner of Standard Heating and